Hey, it's Jeffrey,
And Elizabeth.
and we're here to give you today's devotion. And we'll be talking about Peter in prison one more time. There's a beautiful picture of our church taken from a pigeon's eye view. The question I want to ask today is, what does faith look like in a time of crisis? Because every time I turn on the television, it seems as if somebody is having a crisis. And of course, we're not going to give you a definition of faith. We're just going to show you what faith looks like in the lives of people who were facing their own crisis.
And on the very night when Herod was about to bring him forward, Peter was sleeping between two soldiers, bound with two chains.
The first thing we see is that faith is being able to sleep when you should be worried about what's coming in the morning. And it says there that Peter was asleep between two soldiers. Of course, his colleague had been killed, and he had really no expectation of living past the morning. In Mark chapter 4, we read that Jesus was asleep in a boat when all of the disciples thought it was going to sink. And so Peter had a very good example of what faith looks like. The second thing we see there is that faith is praying for Peter when James had already been put to death. James, we know, was the very first pastor of the very first church, and his life did not end very well. But they kept on praying. Tell us the story, Elizabeth.
Well, Jesus had told his disciples a story to show that they should always pray and never give up. He told the parable of the persistent widow who kept going to the judge every day, wanting justice for her dispute with her enemy. The woman was driving him crazy, and eventually he gave her a request because she was wearing him out. How much more so, said Jesus, will God, who is a just judge, answer our prayers and our persistence.
The third thing we see is that faith is when you follow orders without understanding what's going on. And Peter followed the instructions of an angel, walked past soldiers who were asleep at their post, and really he thought he was just having a dream. Of course, he was able to see angels who were invisible to those people around him. And that is an aspect of faith, being able to see what others can't see.
By faith, Moses left Egypt, not fearing the Pharaoh's anger. He persevered because he saw God, who is invisible.
And finally, faith is when you keep on knocking, even when people think you are a ghost. When Peter went to that house where they were praying, the young girl said, "Oh, it must be his ghost." Well, it wasn't. And that is because people of faith understand what others cannot understand. And that is that we have a God who is looking after us. And this brings us to our conclusion. And I want you to understand that you can have the peace of God in a time when most of the world is very upset and stressed.
Yes, at this time, remember through faith to hold on to the peace of God, which passes all understanding and will guard our hearts and our minds in Christ Jesus.